Daniel, sir. I'm a Democrat. I'm running for governor, and this is kind of an interesting topic here today. So I've read a bunch of articles today on the LA Times, SF Chronicle, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, etc. And a lot of authors and politicians right now just use the word immigrant sort of broadly. And there's really three categories of immigrants. And one of the guys that I've studied a lot is Marcus Aurelius. I've got a copy right here of Meditations, his sort of personal work on being stoic and sort of the philosophy of not reacting to stuff, focusing on what's within your control, focusing on your thoughts, stuff like that. And he had a lot of power and stuff in his day. Roman Empire was pretty huge. Everybody's kind of heard of that. And so I see this term immigrants a lot, and there's really three categories of immigrants, and they are mutually exclusive. So there's people who are an immigrant and they're U.S. citizens. So like I have a friend who owns a gas station nearby, and he came from Iran, and he's an immigrant, and he's also a U.S. citizen. Then there's the non-U.S. citizen, but a legal resident. So I have a family member who's here, or an extended family member who's here. I think she's a Chinese citizen, but is a legal permanent U.S. resident here in America. And so she's in the second category. And then there's the non-U.S. citizen who's also an illegal resident. And when people say illegal immigrant and undocumented immigrant, this is the third group that they're talking about. So like the Santa Cruz Sentinel says there's going to be an immigration crackdown coming. That's not really the right word, and it's kind of blurring these concepts together. And I think that's a part of what is, our language has gotten weak, it's gotten imprecise, and it leads to a portion of the anger and the confusion and the concerns and the political gridlock. And so I try to hold myself, and I think that as a Democrat, we need to all hold ourselves to as high of a standard as possible for language accuracy. And that means, just saying immigrant is not really an accurate word, and it creates a false impression. There's a saying out there on the internet that, watch your thoughts because they become your actions, or because they become your words become your actions become your character becomes your life, something like that. I don't know 100% about that, but I do think there's some truth to it. And that we think in language, we think in words, and the words that we have end up using incorrect words in our mind is a really bad thing, and it's a preventable error, and it has negative effects on our lives. If you do it, I assert my whole position. One of the things I'm running about is that it's going to have a negative effect on your life. And there's a lot of suffering out there right now, and a lot of pain, a lot of confusion, and some of it's been brought on by the internet, of course, and some of it, the Trump administration seems to be purposely antagonistic at times. So, whatever. All right. Can't fix all those things right now. And the next presidential election is 3 years away still, 3 years and a month or two. So I think that really just saying, and so when you notice this in an article, or you hear somebody talking about immigrants, really think to yourself, is this person purposefully blurring these concepts to try to create a misperception, or are they doing it accidentally? Either one is kind of a negative. Our lack of specific language, it leads to communication problems. And I try to hold myself to as high of a standard as I can each day on using words accurately, correctly, and doing that sort of clears up some of the problems. So here's a great example. So there's a San Francisco Chronicle article. Here. So by this guy named George Reitz, I think, says something like that. Hey, I'm not sure exactly the print. So it's an interesting article. He's a U.S. citizen. He was wrongly arrested and held by ICE for 3 days. Not that crazy of a story, though. And ICE is arresting a lot of people. Some of them are going to be, a small number are going to be wrongly arrested. So, and I feel bad for this guy. It sucks. There's also this problem, okay, the Democratic Party has done a lot of things, like giving driver's licenses to, illegal or undocumented immigrants, illegal residents. And so that's why the Real ID thing has come up, where it's trying to prove citizenship. And the Democratic leaders have this long history of trying to sort of blur the lines and just giving people who are here illegally more and more of the benefits of citizenship and trying to blur the lines and call them undocumented stuff. And now there's this huge backlash. So part of my message to this gentleman and people that are, supporting him is we also need to blame Joe Biden and the leaders, the elected leaders of the Democratic Party for their role in allowing, millions of additional people to come here illegally and really acting as though there's not going to be any backlash. The lax immigration rules of the Biden administration is directly contributed to the current environment. And I think that I'd love to see a Democratic leader say, you know what? We're all going to carry our passport around now. That way, nobody has to worry about, if you're a citizen, there's one less thing to worry about. You'll have the ability to try to present the evidence to ICE that you're a citizen, and you'll be okay. And language, he also talks about how somebody shouldn't have to fear being arrested because of their language or where they work. And I don't think that that's true. These things are correlated with illegal immigration coming in from Mexico. Mexico's native language is Spanish. And so the Supreme Court has also ruled that recently, their injunction, I think at the start of last week. And my point is that focusing on these smaller details. Okay, let's say that this did, and it was, the Supreme Court unanimously said they can't do that. So then the Trump administration would just start stopping everybody in LA. And they're still going to continue with this push to try to deport 1 million people a year. Even if they do that, it'll only go from 15 million down to 11 million. And we're focusing on such tiny things. So I'm urging everybody, if you watch this, also keep in mind that we need to blame the Democratic leaders. They're creating a lot of this misery. They're not doing stuff. If Gavin Newsom had said, when all of this started back in June or whatever, that he wants every Californian to carry around a passport, carry around your proof of your citizenship and your nationality, no matter what you look like, no matter where you are. If he had done that, I don't think this would have happened to George. And so think about that. There are actions within the control of the Democratic leadership that can stop stuff like this from happening. But Gavin Newsom and the Democratic leaders, they have benefited from George being arrested and thrown in jail for 3 days. They have. And so we're in this perverse environment where our leaders elected representatives are incentivized for the sort of chaos that they go and publicly say they're against and condemn. They fundraise off this stuff. They're going to campaign on this stuff. And that's the problem. That's a half of why I'm running, is the Democratic leadership is doing a bad job and we deserve better. So anyways, that's all I got. Thanks for listening to my, today's rant, if you heard it. And so thanks for listening. Please hit like, hit share, subscribe. Even, 1 or 2 likes means a lot to me. I'm a very small campaign trying to grow. And let me know what you think in the comments below. All right, thanks. Bye.